Okay, there we go. And my makeover. This is great, actually, because you're supposed to keep touching your tefillin all the time to remember that you're wearing them. And also you need like a little mirror to make sure that your tefillin are straight, and everything. So this is like the perfect tefillin mirror. Couldn't have a better one. If they get out of place, I can always get them right straight back. And there's Len coming on in. Good to have you, Len. Okay, we should be getting Larry, should be popping in here any minute. That's pretty good. We got a whole crew here. Let's see what we got. Okay, so I got somebody. I'm not seeing somebody. Let me just. Okay, Neil, Mark, Len, Kevin, Dr. Pump, all the way from Israel, and Elliot. Okay, well, sounds like a nice enough group to me. I'll take it. We're learning Mishnayos. We're in Maseches Nida. So I'm going to just take a step back and do some explaining because I reviewed these Mishnayos and I came to understand them much better. Okay, so let me share with you the following explanation. First of all, let's take a couple of things we need to understand. The very first Mishnah in all the Mishnayos, you was usually Maseches Brachos is considered to be the first Mishnah. There's a really interesting thing the first Mishnah says. When do you read the Shema? In the evening. The first Mishnah asked that question. When do we read the Shema in the evening? So the Shema in the evening is recited from the time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. The time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. Now, what does that mean? From the time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. Okay, we're going to get back to our Mishnah in Nida. I'm just giving you all this as an essential background. So, what does that mean? So, if a person has become tamei, they're impure, they were defiled for whatever reason. There we go. Let's admit Elliot back in and Larry. Okay. Now we got him. Welcome, Larry. Okay, very good. Okay, now, so again, the Mishnah, the very first Mishnah in Maseches Brachos says, when is a person, when can a person recite the Shema? So it gives us a strange answer. Instead of saying in the evening when 3 stars come out or whatever it is, it says when the Kohen comes in to eat his truma. What is that? So that's actually when the stars come out. But they told it to us that way so we would learn an extra rule. And that is about the Kohanim coming in to eat their truma. What does that mean? Kohen comes in to eat his truma. So if a person is defiled, they become tamei. So a person who's tamei cannot eat truma. Truma is holy. A Kohen who is tamei cannot eat truma because truma is holy. They have to be in a state of purity to eat the truma. For those of you that were just at the first session, the 6 to 7 o'clock hour, so we talked a lot about the added restrictions that a Kohen has, the added restrictions that a Jew has. Jews have more restrictions than Goyim. Kohanim have more restrictions than regular Jews. The result of all that is, of course, to make the person kadosh, holy, because holiness means separateness. Okay, so if a Kohen becomes Tomei, he can't eat his truma. So what does a Kohen do? He goes to the mikvah and he purifies himself. Fine. But that doesn't mean that when he pops out of the mikvah, he can now go back to eating truma. That's not necessarily true. When the Kohen comes out of the mikvah, he is still has some restrictions. He still has some restrictions. What are his restrictions? That he can't eat the truma yet until the stars come out that night. That person is referred to as a tevul yom. Tevul means he's been tovelled, just like you tovel things in the mikvah. He's immersed on that day. And a tevul yom is still not tahor completely until that evening. So he's done what he needs to do. He is mostly purified. If, for example, he had to leave the camp because he was tamei, he can now come back in. However, he is not entirely purified because he still has to wait out the rest of the day in order to be able to start to eat of the truma again. He is a tevul yom. Okay, now that we know about the concept of tevul yom, which means he's done everything he needs to do, but he's still waiting till a certain time passes. Now let's take it back over to Maseches Nida. Okay, the woman, a woman who's a Nida, is prohibited from having relations with her husband. They may have no contact whatsoever while she is a Nida until she goes to the mikvah. And she will usually go to the mikvah in the evening. We don't want women to go to the mikvah on the last day. Woman would be tamei, according to the Torah, for 7 days as soon as her period starts. So then on the 7th day, she could go to the mikvah. You would think she could go to the mikvah on the 7th day. And then when the stars come out, she's then permitted to her husband. So we made a rule that she can't go to the mikvah. She doesn't go to the mikvah until the evening, until the stars come out. She can't go to the mikvah. We don't want a woman having gone to the mikvah and the stars haven't yet come out, because that'll lead to a lot of confusion. Her husband will think that she went to the mikvah, she's permitted now, so on and so forth. So we said no going to the mikvah until the stars come out. So women always go to the mikvah in the evening after the stars have come out. Okay. Let's say if a woman missed, after day 7, if she didn't go to the mikvah that night, so she might say, well, let me go to the mikvah on day 8 during the day. We'll say, no. You always have to go to the mikvah after the stars come out. So if you didn't go at night, you can't go during the next day, you have to go the next night. And the reason for that is we don't want her daughter to remember that she went to the mikvah during the day. Because if her daughter remembers seeing her mother go to the mikvah during the day, then the daughter will think, oh, on the 7th day, that's when you go to the mikvah. And then the daughter might think, and then the daughter will go to the mikvah on the 7th day. And she'll come home and she'll think that she's permitted to her husband, even though the stars haven't come out yet. So therefore, we always have women go after the stars come out. Okay, fine. Now, let's move over one more step to a woman who's not a Nida, or not a Nida because she had her menstrual cycle, but a woman who is a Nida because she gave birth. So we say if she gave birth, that means the womb opened up, and with the baby came out a lot of blood and everything like that, and therefore she is a Nida. If it was a boy, she's a Nida for 1 week. If it was a girl, she's in nida for 2 weeks. After 1 week for a boy or 2 weeks for a girl, the woman will go to the mikveh. And when she goes to the mikveh, she is now permitted to her husband for the next 33 days for a male or 66 days for a female. She is now permitted to her husband. And that, by the way, even if she bleeds further during the next 33 or 66 days, she is still going to be permitted to her husband. Now, there is one difference, there is one restriction, and that is she cannot go to the Beis HaMikdash and she cannot eat or touch holy items, truma and the like. She's permitted to her husband, but she still has some restrictions. When will those restrictions end? After the 33 or the 66 days. Therefore, during those 33 or 66 days, she is considered to be a Tavul Yom, meaning the 33 or the 66 days, basically, she's waiting for the stars to come out. This time they're going to come out like 33 or 66 days later, but she is basically waiting for the stars to come out. She's in the interim. She is somewhat tahor because she went to the mikveh, and she is allowed to be together with her husband, but she is still tameh vis-a-vis the Beis HaMikdash until the deadline passes. Now, a woman who is waiting out her deadline would make things that are kodesh, she would defile them. She's not allowed to touch them until the stars come out. But other things that are not kodesh, she could handle it. She does not defile them. That brings us to Mishnah to chapter 10, Mishnah 6. And it says as follows. Originally they used to say, Hayesheva Saldam Tohar, the woman who is during her 33 or 66 days, who is the halachic equivalent of a Tvul Yom, Haysama'aramayim LePesach. When if Pesach came out during that period of time, and they brought home the Korban Pesach on the eve of Pesach, and they had to wash it down before they roasted it up, she could pour the water onto the Korban Pesach because she's not touching the Korban Pesach. And as a matter of fact, she's not even touching the water. She's just touching the container, and she will not defile the water because she's only touching the container that the water's in. And we're not worried about her, perhaps there's going to be water on the outside of the container, which she might touch and defile that. We're not worried about all that because if Tavul Yom, this woman and her status is she only makes Kodesh things defiled, but she doesn't make chulin, regular things, defiled. And the water that they poured on the korban was just regular water, just to wash it off. So we're not worried that she's going to defile anything. So she could pour the water over the korban. Chazru lomar, but then they went back and they changed their position. And they said, Harehi kemaga tamemes lekachim. They bumped her up one notch in her level of tuma, kedivrei Beis Hillel. And the Gemara says they took on one stringency. So she is a nida vis-a-vis kachim, holy things. But many people were very careful to treat the entire Korban Pesach process, the whole Paschal Lamb, the whole process, as though it was being done with Kedusha. So they would be careful not to just use any water, but only Kodesh water, and so on and so forth. And therefore, they said, they treated her like a nida, as far as kachim goes, that she's not allowed to touch that, but they were still lenient on that's only kachim. that she cannot touch because she'll make it tame. About chulin, regular old items, that even though they were being made or maintained on levels of purity, Beis Hillel says she could still, she doesn't, they're not totally kodesh. She could still, we don't have to worry about that water. If she touches it, she could still, even though we bumped her up to a higher level of tuma, she could still pour the water. Beis Shammai says she's like a dead body. They made her like the highest level of tuma, and she would make any vessel that she touches tummy, and therefore she would not be allowed to deal with any type of kochim at all. But the next Mishnah goes on to say, Umodim, she ochels b'maiser. They do admit that she could eat meiser. That's the second tithe, the tithe, that's of a lower level. The kotza lachala, and if she makes a dough, she can separate the challah, even though as soon as you separate the challah becomes kodesh, and if she separates it, she touches it, she will defile it. So here's what she does. She makes a dough, she separates the challah. She does not say this is challah. She just cuts off a piece of dough and puts it in a separate container. She does not proclaim it to be challah. Then, uma kefes, she wraps it up and brings that vessel back and puts it down with the rest of the dough. Vikora lashem, and then she calls it challah, and she separates the container away from the rest of the dough, not touching the dough. So she cuts off the dough, doesn't call it challah, puts it in the container, puts the container back with the rest of it, separates it now again and calls it challah, but this time she's not touching it, and because she wouldn't be allowed to touch holy items, and that's how she does it. V'im nafal me'roko midam tahara al kikar shel truma. If some of her spit or some blood fell onto a loaf of truma, shehu tar, which is tar, b'shamiyam and tzrichat fil b'achrona. The Beis Shammai says, then I'm sorry, shehu tahar. And if similarly, if some blood or spit from her fell on the truma, it also would not make it tameh, because since she is living in this tuvul yom status, where she is partially tahar, and because it's not really her, but just some spit or something that came off of her, it's tahar. Lastly, the Mishnah says, Beis Shammai amrim tzrichat tefillah b'achrona. Beis Shammai says at the end of the 33 or 66 days, she needs to go to the mikveh again. Beis Hillel amrim in tzrichat tefillah b'achrona. And Beis Hillel says she doesn't need it to touch tahar things, but if she's going to go to the Beis Mikdash, she would need it. Okay, at this point, I am going to be davening until 8 p.m. So we are going to continue. The program will continue with Maseches Bava Basra, and we're going to be picking up with that fascinating story of Tzlofchad and his daughters. We're going to be picking up with that at 8 a.m. But right now, I'm going to go daven, and I'm actually going to take along anyone that wants to come along with me by doing the following. Hope everyone's still around. Thank you. And we're back. And just allow me a moment to get undressed, and we're going to start learning some Maseches Bava Basra. Okay. Got it. Here we are, folks. Get my Gemaras right here. Okay. Gemara. Okay. Good morning.
Right.
So let's start off on Daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis with the Mishnah. Okay. We'll see if we can put all this together. So this is, wait a second, we got to be recording this. That's my job there, to record this. So we're going to pick up with the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Kuf Tes Zayin Amud Beis, although I know we went a little bit further, but let's just start with this. We'll put the whole idea together. The Mishnah says, Benos Tzlafchad, Tzlafchad's daughters, Notlu Gimel Chalakim Benachla. They took 3 portions of the inheritance of Israel. So when they divided up Israel, the daughters of Tzlafchad got 3 different portions. First of all, Chelek Avihem. They got the portion that was due to their father Tzlafchad, who had died in the desert. He should have gotten a portion, and they were his only heirs, so they got his portion. Shohei Im Yotzi Mitzrayim. He was one of the people that left Egypt, and as we're going to see in a minute, this Mishnah is of the opinion that the land was divided to the people who left Egypt, not to the people who came into the land, but whoever left Egypt at the age of 20, from 20 to 60, was eligible, or at least at this point, above the age of 20, we think, was eligible to enter into the land of Israel, to receive a portion of Israel. And even if they died in the desert, that portion would go to their children. In Tzlafchad's case, he only had daughters, so it went to his daughters. The Chelko im Achiv b'nechsei Chefer. Now, Tzlafchad also had a father named Chefer, and Chefer also left Egypt. Chefer was also due a portion of the land of Israel. And they got the portion that Tzlafchad would have received when he and his brothers divided up Chefer's portion. But since Tzlafchad was no longer alive, his daughters stood in and they got the portion he would have gotten. And Vishohei Bechor, and because Tzlafchad was the firstborn, they took 2 of those portions. So therefore they got 3 portions. They got Tzlafchad's portion from Chefer, and Tzlafchad's portion as a Bechor of Chefer. Fine. So the Gemara on the top of 117a says, Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Gemara says, Tanan Keman Da Amar. Our Mishnah is following the opinion that says, Liyotze Mitzrayim Nischalka Haaretz, that the land of Israel was divided amongst those that left Egypt. The ones that left Egypt, they're the ones that got the portions, even though they were dead, but they're the ones who got the portions. How do we know that? Because Titania, for we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Yoshia Omer, Rabbi Yoshia says, Liyotze Mitzrayim Nischalka Haaretz, unto those that left Egypt was the land divided, Shenemar, because the pasuk says, when Moshe is talking to them, those that are standing, getting ready to inherit the land, this is in Numbers 26:55. Moshe says it should be done with a lottery. The land should be divided lishmos matos avosam, according to the names of the tribes of their fathers. Yichalu, they shall inherit. So you see, you see that they're inheriting according to the tribes of their fathers. That must mean who? All the deceased people who came out of Egypt. Now, there is another possibility, which is that it's the 12 tribes of Israel, but we'll get to that later. But it's certainly referring to someone that precedes this group of people that Moshe is talking to there in the plains of Moab, about to enter the land of Israel. Now, the Gemara says, Elama ani mekayim. So then what do I do with the pasuk that says, Lo ela techalek haaretz benachla? Unto these you shall divide the land as a heritage. Well, what do you mean to these? You just told me we're not dividing it according to these. You're dividing it according to their parents and grandparents that left Egypt. So it says, La ela, meaning to these, ka ela, like these. The people you're dividing it to have to be like these. Just like these, there was just a census, and everyone between the age of 20 and 60 was counted. So too, this would be like these, the ones that you do divide it to have to be like these people, that they would have to be at least 20 years old when they left Egypt to get a portion, just like these people had to be at least 20 years old to be in the accounting. Okay, that's one opinion. Second opinion, Rav Yonasan Omer, L'boy haaretz nitzchal haaretz. No, the land was not divided amongst those who left Egypt. The land was divided amongst those who came into Israel. We looked at who was there to come into Israel, and that's how the land was divided up. Shenamar, because it says la'ela, to these people, they're standing right here, says God to Moshe, techalek haaretz benachla, you shall divide the land. These people are standing here that are about to go into Israel. They're in the plains of Moab. They're about to go into Israel. These are the ones you divide it up to. Well then, Elamani mekayim lishmos matos avosam. But what about the earlier pasuk that says divided according to their names of the fathers' groups? That sounds like the division is according to the previous generation. So Rav Yonasan says, Mishuna nachla zu mikol nachlos sheba'olam. It's to tell you that this particular inheritance was different than any other inheritance that ever took place. Shekol nachlos sheba'olam. All other inheritances that take place in the world, chayin yorshin mesim. The living inherit from the dead. V'kan, and here, mesim yorshin chayin. The dead inherit from the living. How does that work? What do you mean? Rabbi says, Emshel l'cha mashal. Let me give you a parable to explain to you how this division of Israel actually worked. It was a strange division. L'maha davar doma. What's it compared to? Lishnei achim kohanim. Let's say he had two brothers who were kohanim. Shahayu ba'ir achas. They lived in one city. And le'echad yesh lo ben echad. One had one son. Le'echad yesh lo shnei banim. And the other had two sons. V'halchu l'goren. And they went out to the granaries, to the various farmers, to collect their portions. Zeh sheyesh lo ben echad notal chelek echad. The one with one son, he had one portion brought back to him. Zeh sheyesh lo shnei banim notal shnei chelakim. And the one with two portions were brought back to him. But when they came home, they turned it all over to their fathers. v'chozrin v'cholkim b'shava. And then the fathers mixed it together and divided everything up equally. So the two brothers said, they made like a partnership. You send your kids out to collect, I'll send my kid out to collect, but then we'll divide it up even Steven. So this is what happened with Israel. So let's look at it like this. You have Reuven and Shimon both leave Egypt. And in the desert, Reuven has 10 sons and Shimon has 1 son. When they go, by the time they come to Israel, Reuven's kids and Shimon's kids are all 20 years old. So when they come into Israel, Reuven's 10 kids each get a portion. Shimon's 1 kid also gets a portion. The 2 of them turn the land, all 11 portions, back to Reuven and Shimon, whose father also left Egypt. They'll give the 10 portions back to Reuven and Shimon's father, 11 portions to Reuven and Shimon's father. They give it back up the line. Then Reuven will take 5.5 of those portions. Shimon will take 5.5 of those portions. Reuven will give his 5.5 portions to his 10 kids. And Shimon will give his 5.5 portions to his 1 kid. So Reuven's kids each get a half a portion and a little bit, and Shimon's kid gets 5.5 portions. So the land was given to all the kids, but they give it back up to the dead. They let the dead inherit from the living, and then they let it filter down according to the laws of inheritance. So according to Rabbi Yonasan, that's how the division of the land of Israel worked. It was given to, a portion was given to every person that entered the land. Then those people bounced it back up to their grandparents. And then it followed the regular laws of inheritance down the line. So, according to the first method, that it was given to the people that left Israel. So you say like this, Reuven and Shimon left Egypt. Reuven and Shimon left Egypt. Reuven gets 1 portion, Shimon gets 1 portion. Reuven has 10 kids. Each of those kids will get 1/10 of a portion. Shimon has 1 kid. He'll get a full portion. Okay? That's the way it worked. According to Rabbi Yonasan, no. Reuven has 10 kids. They'll get 10 portions. Shimon has 10 kids. They'll get 1 portion. They then inherit the portions back up to their parents, grandparents, and then it'll follow the regular laws of inheritance and work its way down to the grandchildren. So they inherit, they bump it back up to the grandparents, and then it'll filter down according to the laws of inheritance. So 2 methods. We're going to now introduce a 3rd method. According to the first method, Rabbi Yoshia, the land of Israel was divided amongst all those people that left Egypt. According to Rabbi Yonasan, the land of Israel is divided amongst all those people that entered Israel. And now we're going to have a 3rd method, and that is on the bottom line of Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar's opinion is, La'elu Ula'elu Nischalka Haaretz. The land of Israel was divided to both groups. Kidei L'Kayim Shnei Mikros. And that fulfills Mikros Halolo. That fulfills both of these psukim. One pasuk says it's divided according to your father's tribes, and one pasuk says it's divided to these people who are standing here right now. So Rav Elazar ben Shimon says it's both. It's both. Hakate said, how would that work? How does that work out? So, Hayamiyotze if someone left Egypt, Notel Chalko, im yaseh Mitzrayim. He gets a portion of Israel along with all the rest of the people that went out of Egypt. Hayim iboya aretz. If he's one of the people that entered into the land, notel chelko im boyaris. He gets one portion with all the rest of the people that entered the land. Now, according to this method, Israel's going to have to be sliced up into a much smaller pie. Mikan, if a person was both, notel chelik mikan or mikan, he would get a portion from both. Now, how would that be? That he was both, that he left Egypt and he came into Israel. So according to, now our Mishnah could be going according to this opinion also. So this opinion would say that both the people that left Egypt as well as the people that entered the land, everybody got a portion. All of them got a portion in the land of Israel. Now, even though the people that left Egypt died off in the desert during the 40 years, we will say that their children will inherit from them. So, for example, let's say you had Reuven, and he left Egypt and he was 20 years old, and he had kids in the desert. But by the time they came into Israel, those kids, the oldest of them was only 19 years old. So therefore, Reuven would get a portion because he left Egypt. Reuven's son wouldn't get a portion because they weren't old enough to come into the land. Even if Reuven died, his sons, however, would inherit him. So they wouldn't get their own portion for coming into the land, but they would inherit him. Now, if you are of the opinion that it only went to people that left Egypt, then only Reuven gets a portion. If you're of the opinion that it's the people that went into the land that get it, so they would inherit, but then they would bump it back up to their grandparents, and then it would filter down according to the laws of inheritance. If you're following this third opinion, both Reuven gets it, and if his kids were 20 years old, they would also get it. So they would get their own portion, the 20-year-olds, and they would inherit Reuven's portion also. Then it said, though, if a person was both, how can a person be both? How does that work that a person would be both? So one possibility is he was 61 years old when he left Egypt. And people that were above 60 when they left Egypt didn't die in the desert. So therefore, when they came into Israel, he was 101 years old. And he said, I should get a portion because I'm coming into Israel. And I also get a portion because I left Egypt. He would file a claim under the people who left Egypt statute, and he'd file a separate claim under the people who come into Israel statute, and he'd get a double portion. Now, the Rashbam has some questions about that, whether that's really viable, whether a person who left, whether you can have a person that's both. But he does point out, as we're going to see in just a minute, the example of that would be Yehoshua and Kalev, who did get a double portion. Now, I don't know if I don't know how that comes out, if we hold like that or not. It says the Rashbam is very skeptical about the fact that 61-year-olds got it, because it says to these you shall divide the land, and it sounds like it says, and amongst these there was no one that was there in the accounting. So that means no one was around to be accounted by Moshe the first time. Although the truth is, I could say with this 61-year-old guy wasn't around to be counted by Moshe the first time either, because he was too old to be counted.
Rabbi, over 60, didn't they die in the desert? You said they didn't?
No.
Who died before, below 60?
20 to 60.
20 to 60, yeah.
because they were the people that were the active soldiers at the time when the spies came back. They were the ones that chickened out. They were the ones who were supposed to do the conquering, and they were the ones that chickened out. So they're the ones that died in the desert. But the people that were older than 60, they were never supposed to be in the army in the first place. So they weren't able to chicken out.
So,
It's just interesting mentality when you think about. Yesterday I asked the same question. I'm still thinking that below 20, the slavish mentality, you can't go there because slave mentality, once a slave, always a slave. So 20 to 60 slaves, I can see them dying. Young kids, they go ahead, they don't know what slavery is. But over 60, they also have slavish mentality. And yet maybe Torah is now showing compassion. If you're so old, then slavish or not, we'll let you in anyway.
No, I don't think it's compassion or not.
how would that work? The over 60 people would be Rabbi Yonason's idea, because they were, they would get their land, but they would inherit back because they would have it. They would be alive. So how
Right.
does that work? Those kids wouldn't. The kids would have to live with the,
Yeah, so according to Rabbi Yonason, they would get a piece of land and they would inherit it back to who?
They wouldn't send it back. They're alive. They would live on it.
They'd give it back to themselves.
Yeah, I mean it's theirs. So what
Yeah.
happens? What happens with the kids? They have to
They
live
would
with
give
the
it back
father.
to themselves and they would keep it.
Yeah.
And their kids wouldn't get anything until they died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, they would send it back to themselves. Right, good point. According to Rabbi Yonason, if there's such people, would send it back to themselves. Right.
So what about people over 60, Rabbi? How come they're getting in?
Yeah. So there is a dispute here. It seems there's a Rashbam here, and the Rashbam says. So the Rashbam says like this. He says, "Don't say that we're talking about one person that left Egypt when he was." Hang on. Yeah, that when he was 60 years old and he didn't die because the decree was only on people that were 20 to 60. And then according to Rabbi Lazar, Reb Shimon, he would get two portions, this guy. He left Egypt and he came into Israel, he'd get a double portion, right? So the Rashbam said, maybe that's what the Gemara means when it said he's both. But the Rashbam has some problems with that. Because the fact that you're saying that the people that went into the land got a portion, that's because it says, unto these you shall divide the land. And those are the people that are in the plains of Moab.
Right.
But it says that only the people that were in the plains of Moab were all children of the people that left Egypt.
Right.
It says these people, none of them were people that left Egypt. They were all children of people that left Egypt, or less than 20 years old when they left Egypt. And it says, unto them you should divide it. So it sounds like anyone that left Egypt would be excluded because this crowd didn't leave Egypt. Now, this one guy comes along who's 61. It was 61 when they left Egypt. He said, I left Egypt. But it sounds like Moshe is saying, no, only to this group that were not the ones that left Egypt. That's the ones you divide the land to. Not to anyone that left Egypt themselves.
But how does that work with the other pasuk? That's just that one pasuk. But what about the one where, the people left Egypt? The tribes of the fathers of the people left Egypt. What do you do with that?
So he would say, Rabbi Lazar and Shimon would say, yeah, you give to them also. That would mean anyone that was 20 to 60 when they left Egypt would also get, and they're dead now. You'll give it to them in death, and it'll pass down as inheritance to their kids.
No, okay, so just a regular. Okay,
Yeah, you give to both.
right.
The problem is this guy that was 61, he's going to lose out on both ends.
Yeah. Well, no, because he's part of these because he's standing there with Moshe, so he's going to get the going in part.
No, he's
No?
too old.
Oh, he's too old.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So, oh no.
Yeah,
So
but-
Rashbam
so
says
if he's too old, he
Would
won't
get-
get the coming out.
he'd get a portion because he left Egypt. He
Right.
didn't leave Egypt.
Right.
That he'd get a portion from.
Right. That's that.
He wouldn't get one for coming in, but he would get one for going out.
Right.
However, the Rashbam quotes a Tosefta that does say that this guy should get a double portion because it says there, Yoshua and Kalev took 3 portions of the land. Number 1, they left Egypt. Number 2, they came into Israel. And number 3, they get the portion of the Meraglim, which is the next thing we're going to read in just 1 second. So it's questionable. So there's 2 ways to learn about these guys, the 61-year-old people. Okay, hold on a second. Let me get a drink. I'll be right back.
Lev, Lev?
Yeah,
Have you been listening to any of the classes?
yeah. I listened to several classes. Of course, I had to juggle a little bit of time zone, 7 hours ahead.
Right. Right.
I look forward today to listen to Rabbi Lerman.
Did you hear Rabbi Minkowitz?
Oh, it was terrific.
Rabbi.
It was terrific.
Yeah.
Here, Minkowitz, he was the first one.
What time is Rabbi Lerman?
Oh, Helene says Helene heard most of it.
Yeah.
He was magnificent. You hear me?
Yeah, Helene said Minkiewicz was magnificent.
Yeah, he was good.
What a wonderful kickoff.
Yeah, it was really nice.
So that means Chabad is moving to Ariel. That's what I figure out.
We had everybody. I mean, this is your dream. This Torathon, Lev, is your dream.
Yes, the dream came true. They're going to be now doing a minyan in cafeteria.
Yeah. I mean,
That's excellent.
yeah.
Well, that's what happened in here now, Shul in Beersheba. Chabad will place right here. They have 2 rooms, Chabad in one and regular guys in another one.
They do have that?
On the same roof. They have 2 different minyanim. They have the minhag, but they pray at the same time.
They share the same building?
Same building.
Yeah.
They're just renting the room.
Do they do anything together?
Yeah, they borrow Torah from each other when they need something,
I mean, they learn together or anything?
Not much. Some, but not. I don't know. I don't see that much because in Israel it's different. It's not that much socializing after.
Yeah,
service.
people in Israel, people daven and go home. I
They
mean,
come home. Yeah, but there's a lot of Torah classes and Mishnahs,
yeah,
classes. So maybe they do. Yeah, I think they do cross join some classes. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that was
What we miss a Tanya class. I know Bruce Barron is learning Tanya.
uh-huh.
That's a good class to have. We
Yeah.
should teach Tanya, Harold.
Yeah.
Who's Bruce?
Bruce should teach it.
Yeah, he can. Maybe with Rabbi Lerman together.
Yeah.
And Rabbi Friedman. 3 of them should teach Tanya.
Yeah.
It's a great topic. Great topic. and Kabbalah too. Zohar.
So you guys, is your shields open for Shavuos?
Yeah. I think they just started up to, I think, 100 people now you can get gatherings. I think.
really?
If I'm not-
Yeah, I know Shoshana's kids started school yesterday, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mizrach Hashem, it'll get better. You know, it's heat. Maybe that's what will work its way.
Yeah, we're just Ariel's just meeting outside right now.
Okay. Well, hopefully Mizrach Hashem, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I haven't been to any minions yet. I'm in the over 60 group. Oh, I'm in the over 61.
Over 61, you're not gonna get an you're gonna get inheritance in Israel.
No,
That's why did they get inheritance and the young kids did in the middle didn't?
the middle ones, they did. That's the whole point. They do get inheritance.
But the young kids didn't.
Maybe under 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And just a second.
Well, they get at least something through their parents, right, Harold?
Right. And they'll inherit.
Yeah. I guess in the middle they get it's a social system, socialism. They need to be taken care of. They get the Aliyah basket.
Still on? No.
Okay. Fine. There we go. Okay. So we have our three opinions, three different ways that it worked. And according to Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, we have possibility that either some people will be getting on both ends, either because they came into the land and they're inheriting from their fathers, or another possibility is that there's actually a single person who could be getting in both ends. And now we're talking about two people that we know got double portions. Meraglim, the spies, Yehoshua v'Kalev natlu chelkam. Yehoshua and Kalev took their portions. The spies were the portions that belonged to Yehoshua and Kalev, the portion of the land that was supposed to go to the spies that were taken by Yehoshua and Kalev. And that is because there's a pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk in the Torah says that it says, oh yeah, because, well, let me read one more line. It says, Yehoshua and Kalev got the portion of the spies, and the Mislonanim, those people who were complaining, they got the slav, and then they ate it, and then they choked on it, they died on it, and all that. So Mislonanim va'adas Korach, and the crowd of Korach that all died in the desert, lo haya lahem chelek ba'aretz. They did not get any portion at all in the land. Now, when the daughters of Tzlafchad came to Moshe, they said, our father died, and why should he not get a portion in the land? he said, they say, this is in Bamidbar 27, he was not part of the congregation that went against God. So the congregation, the Ada, that is the code word for the Meraglim, because they are referred to as the congregation. Okay, the Ada. So they weren't part of that. That means he wasn't part of the Meraglim. They came against Hashem. And it says, Hanoadim al Hashem, those that congregated or convened against God, that's the Mislonanim, because that's the word it was used for talking about the ones that complained that we don't have any meat to eat. And Adas Korach Kamashmo. And it said the Korach, and it says, and he also wasn't part of Korach. So he wasn't part of the Ada. That means he wasn't part of the spies. He wasn't part of the complainers who also died in the desert. And he wasn't part of the Korach group that died in the desert. And therefore, why should he lose his portion? Now we see from there that all those people did lose their portion. None of them did get. Meaning, had he been part of the Korach people, or part of the spies, or part of the complainers, he would have lost his portion, understandably. So you see that they all lost. Now, there's also a pasuk. The pasuk says that Yoshua and Kalev lived. Of the 12, they lived. That means their life. They are the ones of the 12. Of the 12, they took the life of all of them, and the life is the inheritance. So that's what we understand. They took the inheritance. As far as the others goes, they just lost their inheritance, and it was all just redistributed amongst all the rest of Israel. Everyone else in the country got it just a little bit portion bigger because these guys had died. But the portion that was supposed to go to the 12 tribes, to the other 10 spies, went directly to Yeshua and Caleb. Habanim, now the sons of the spies and the complainers and Korach, not l'bischus avi avihem. If they had grandparents who had left Egypt that got their portions, they would inherit those. But if they didn't have grandparents that left Egypt, they only had fathers who left Egypt, and those fathers were the complainers or the spies, and they died, they would get nothing. Uvischus avi imosehem. And they also could get through their mothers, through the fathers of their mothers. Like, for example, let's say they were at Tzlafchad. If they had children of Tzlafchad's daughters, for example, let's say the grandfather left Egypt and he only had a daughter, and this is the son of that daughter. They would get that way also. Now, later on, we'll get to the fact that this might also work according to the third opinion. Very simply, this Gemara is going according to the opinion that those that left Egypt are, the land was divided to those that left Egypt. But there are those that say that this could work out according to Rabbi Elazar Rav Shimon's opinion also. But that's a Gemara coming up. We'll deal with it when we get to it.
Rabbi, but
Yeah.
over 60, some died in the desert, some didn't. Let's say somebody was 90 when he left Egypt, and let's say he was 130 by the time he came to the border. Did he?
I don't think he died.
Nobody over 60. Nobody of them died in the desert.
Right. So when they came to Israel,
so there could be 100-year-old guys left Egypt, and they were 140.
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
And so they came to Israel, and they have inheritance.
Right.
And the guys in the middle, 20 to 60, they all died.
Yeah, when they came into Israel, there was no men there that were between the age of 100 and 60. There were men of all ages up to 60, and there were men above 100. But there were no in between 100 and 60. 100 down to 60. There were no men.
So when Moshe is talking to the group, 20 to 60, that generation dies in Israel. I mean, in the desert.
Yeah.
Before 20, they all make it to Israel. And over 60 at the time Moshe is talking about, they all coming to Israel.
So remember, the ones who were before 20, they're now 60 years old when it's time to come into Israel. If they
Yeah,
were 19, they're 39, they're 59 years old.
yeah.
They were 19 when they left Egypt.
Yeah, so those, if they stand in front of on the bank of Jordan, those who 40 years ago were
Yeah.
below 20, they're done for.
So Moshe is talking to a group of people that are either 59 years or younger or 101 years or older. And women of all ages.
I'm just trying to understand the rationale. I mean, of course, God has his rationale. I'm just trying to understand
There's no rationale.
why.
It's just the facts. That's what happened. That's the facts. I'll tell
No,
you the
but
rationale.
I
The
always thought
rationale is that there was a group of people that they got involved with some spies and they messed themselves up.
that's 20 to 60. So it's just saying it has nothing to do with a slavish mentality. Nothing to do with that. It just
You can
But-
you can read that in. There's a famous Ibn Ezra. There's a famous Ibn Ezra that talks about that. Then maybe that was God's, but that's already trying to read God's mind.
but
There's
if
an
you've been
Ibn
there,
Ezra that
even
says,
if
"God really
like
wanted
if you
them all to die out because they had a slave mentality."
but that's that will explain 20 to 60, but it will not explain over 60.
Yeah,
Well,
but the ones over
wouldn't they have-
60, the people who are over 60 don't have such an impact on society.
So they didn't get impacted. But okay.
Right? See, once you turn more than 60, you forget it. You don't, forget it. You're wasting your time. You don't have any impact on anybody anymore.
So young people came and very old people came. In the middle, they all died in the desert and they didn't get
Right.
inheritance.
Right.
And that makes sense because why would they talk about inheritance to the middle group if they die? But
Right.
the only reason you can still say if they die, would their children inherit in Israel? And that's what dispute, whether it's the one
Yeah.
they left or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That brings us to what we're doing now. Yes.
Right. Right. Now let's just go on just a couple more lines to finish up this Gemara. My mashma the highly shmos matos of asam yetzi mitzrayim ksiv. Now we've been working all along that the pasuk that said lishmos matos of asam was referring to the people that left Egypt. Maybe Dilma lishvatim ka'amarla. Maybe Moshe was just saying that when they came into Israel, the land was divided amongst the 12 tribes equally. It's just divided among the 12 tribes. And maybe it was just, how do you know it was talking about the people that left Egypt? Maybe it was just amongst the 12 tribes. So the Gemara says, no, that can't be. Dirsiv v'nasati osa lachem morasha. Back in Shmos, in the book of Shmos, this is chapter 6, right? This is right when they're getting ready to leave. And Va'era, Moshe is still talking to them in Egypt, and he tells them that you're going to go and get the land, and it will be divided. I'm going to give it to you as an inheritance. Ani Hashem, to you, I'm going to give it to. He lachem, me'avosechem, it's your inheritance from your fathers. Liyatzei Mitzrayim kamer, and he was speaking to the people that are getting ready to leave Egypt. And therefore, it must be talking about the people who leave Egypt. So in summation, just wrap up this Gemara, we'll close it out, and then we'll make way for Rabbi Seaman, who's going to be taking over at the 9 o'clock hour. So the daughters of Tzlafchad, the Mishnah, the daughters of Tzlafchad inherited from their father, is predicated on the approach that says that the land of Israel was divided to those that left Egypt. There's three opinions. Either A, Israel was divided among those that left Egypt, not the people that entered the land. It was amongst those that left Egypt, even if they weren't alive. And they weren't alive, as a matter of fact. They were not alive. They were the ones that left Egypt, and they're the ones that the land is divided to, and their children inherited from them. So when they came into Israel and they did a lottery and they divided up the land of Israel, they divided it up amongst a group of people who were all dead. Those people were not there, according to this first opinion. This is Rabbi someone. Hang on a second. Rav Yoshia. The land was divided amongst those that left Egypt. And then it was given in following the regular rules of inheritance, it went to the children. One opinion. Rav Yonasan is another opinion. Rav Yonasan says it was divided up amongst those that entered the land of Israel. But a really curious thing happened, according to him. And all this is to satisfy different verses in the Torah. A curious thing happened. They divided it up amongst all the people that came into the land. Then those people inherited it back up to their deceased ancestors, who then re-inherited it back down following the standard rules of inheritance. Okay. Now, the third opinion is that the land of Israel was divided amongst both the people who entered the land of Israel as well as the people who left Egypt. It went to both. And therefore, there would be some people that would get double portions, either a portion because they entered the land, or a portion because their fathers left, and a portion because their fathers left Egypt, or maybe one or the other. Maybe you could have someone whose father didn't get a portion because maybe his father was only 19 when he left Egypt, but the son will get a portion. Or maybe you'll have someone where the son was 19 when they came into the land. He doesn't get a portion of the land, but he'll get from his father. And we even talked about the fact that there could be some people that will get a double portion. Maybe they were 61 years old when they left Egypt, and they might get a portion on both ends. That's debatable. There were different opinions about that. Furthermore, to wrap up, the Meraglim, the spies themselves, they lost their portions of Israel, and those went over to Yehoshua and Caleb, because the pasuk says Yehoshua and Caleb, they lived. So they took the life of the spies. They lived. They alone lived. So they took the portions from the spies. The children of the spies would therefore get nothing unless they happen to have grandfathers who had left Egypt, or according to the opinion that they came into the land, maybe they would get it that way. Also, the people that were complainers and the crowd of Korach, they also lost their portions, and their portions were redistributed equally amongst all of Israel. And their children, if they had grandchildren, if they came into Israel, according to the opinion that you came into Israel, you got a portion, they would get. If it's according to the people who left Egypt only, then unless they had a grandfather or someone that left Egypt, they would not get a portion in the land of Israel. What do you do if you don't get a portion in the land of Israel? I guess you better open up a coffee shop or become a blacksmith or something, because you're not going to get a piece of land. So,
But everybody over 60 at the time, like this before 40 years, at the time of 60, they all got in and got inheritance. Because they're over the 100 now when they actually crossed to Israel.
They all got in, and I believe that they would get an inheritance. No, they did not necessarily get an inheritance because they were too old. They were too old. Only the ones that were in the plains of Moab that were between 20 and 60 got the inheritance.
But they all died.
Huh? They may have gotten a portion. No, the ones between 20 and 60 were the ones that grew up in the desert. Figure it out. Just do the math.
No, I'm talking about 20 to 6 at the time of counting. When they're now they're like 60 and all. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm confused because of the two. One way to look 40 years at the beginning, and then 40 years after. At the time when Moses is talking to them, there's a three.
Okay.
He's talking to everybody who holds the sword from 20 to 60. That's a group.
Anyone that was above the age of 20 when they left Egypt, according to that opinion, would get a piece of land in Israel. But you would not get opinion if you came into the land of Israel. You had to be between 20 and 60. It was not divided to people who were older than 60 when they came into the land. So they could get one portion, but perhaps not two. That's a matter of dispute.
But those who are 20 to 60 in the beginning, they died in the desert, though.
They died in the desert.
Even though they got inheritance.
If the land was divided to them, then their children will inherit their portions.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so we're going to wrap up this hour, and that was our Gemara learning of Baba Basra. We are marching on